BlackRock has done the unthinkable, and that is selling Bitcoin and swapping it in for ETH. Maybe some of you guys are asking that very question today. Well, we'll break it down for you. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. Before we get started, I want to thank our sponsor, and that is Tangem. This is a place where you guys can get your self-custody projects going. And the idea around self-custody is to get your tokens off of centralized exchanges and put it into your own control. And it's very easy to set up with the Tangem cards. These are some of the best wallets out there. It is the way to go. All you have to do is use our link. You guys are going to get some additional discounts to get started. And the best of all, it's super easy for you guys to set up. Now, getting into it today, we're going to be running down a full run on all of this. Joining me, of course, is Mr. Tim Moore, coming in from Investing Bros. How are you, Tim?
Doing good, Paul. Good to be back on the show with you.
Yeah, so we've got a lot to break down. I want to get into a few things with what's happening on the macro side of things. But when you look at just where the macro side is going, let me go to this tweet real quick before we kind of jump into things. But I want to go into the scenario of Trump and Xi Jinping meeting on Friday. Now, this is all coming around the 50% tariff on steel. China being one of the big steel producers. This, of course, rattled the cage of Xi Jinping and the Chinese. They have come back and said, yeah, well, we're gonna get a little bit more, I think, defensible in the sense that they're really going to start to look to reposition. Now, whether or not this plays out into a taco trade, which if you guys have not heard that before, I've got to show this to you guys.
Yeah.
So it's the Trump always chicken out trade. This is in reference to tariffs where he says, hey, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, and doesn't do it. But what do you think about this news with BlackRock, Tim? I mean, this was huge, selling 1,249 Bitcoin and now buying 27,000 Ethereum. What do you think this does to the ETH price?
Well, yeah, let's not necessarily act like this is the exact spark that's going to make it move. But what has happened every other bull market? We get a big run up on Bitcoin.
Yes.
And normally retail, but retailers usually take profit on Bitcoin and move it over into Ethereum altcoins. Is BlackRock the new retail? Are they repeating altcoin season just in their own rhythm? They're late, right? It should have happened back in December. They took their time. It's coming maybe in June. This lines up exactly with what we see going on in the charts right now, Paul. I'm sure that we're going to go in there, but I think this is big news. Again, let's not count chickens before they hatched. It's not like that amount of money is life-changing. BlackRock is a very, very small amount of money compared to them, but if it's a beginning sign of things to come, that's where the excitement should start to come in.
Yeah, and the beginning of sign is this right here. I'm looking at the IBIT ETF, and this is the first time we've seen that kind of outflow. This is the deepest outflow in maybe in history, it looks like. And if this is something that, we're looking at, when you think about what Larry Fink is talking about around the future of what BlackRock is trying to do around tokenized securities, then ETH most likely could be the play. Maybe it's just the point where they have finally come in and said, we realize what's happening, we understand it. Before we go to the chart, I want to remind you guys, if you guys want to follow Tim, you can do that by jumping over to his channel, and that is Investing Bros right there on YouTube. I loved some of the videos you just did. A couple of the ones I wanted to hit on right here. The top 3. So I know you're going to reveal these since you revealed them on your channel.
Yeah.
We'll talk about those. But let's go to the ETH chart real quick and give me an idea of where you think ETH is going to go here in the near future, because it's kind of been sideways here for the last week or so.
Yeah, well, we'll start off right there. You said reveal the top 3 we just did. That's a video that just dropped today at noon. Number 1 was Ethereum. And to be clear here, when we say top 3, I say in the video, don't necessarily look at these as the top gainers. Look at them as the top 3 most important coins to watch in the month of June, and Ethereum was coin number 1. And in the video, I'll do it here for everybody as well, but I encourage you guys go check out the video as well. What I discuss is the Ethereum chart over US dollar is looking good. This formation that we're developing, throw out last couple of months, throw out last couple of weeks, just talk about what we are doing here since back on May 14th. Few altcoins are holding up better. You take a look at other things, Solana trending downward, Cardano trending downward, Sui, of course, trending downward. I think we might talk about Chainlink later, trending downward. Ethereum, that's actually an uptrend. This is called an ascending triangle with higher lows and a flat top. It's very bullish. And when you attach it to an explosive move like Ethereum has called a flagpole, this becomes a potential bull pennant with a target all the way up here towards 3,800, almost to $4,000. But this isn't even the biggest thing to look at for the month of June. Again, Ethereum price should go up, but the more important chart to keep an eye on is the ETH over Bitcoin chart, where we're seeing something very similar. Not necessarily the ascending triangle, but it is a symmetrical triangle still attached to a big movement. And that right there is also a bull pennant that could send the Ethereum over Bitcoin price back up to levels we haven't seen since way back here in January of this year. Why this is important is because, this went way lower. This ETH over Bitcoin chart went way lower than I thought, but this has been the largest rebound on ETH over Bitcoin since all the way back here in August, September of 2022, right before the bottom of the bear market. Are we finally seeing Ethereum rebound? We're seeing a similar levels back to December of 19, January 2020. Are we about to see what history has always seen with altcoin season? We always see Bitcoin run up first, and then then Ethereum start to run itself. It begins to pick up steam, and then altcoins come after. You go back to that BlackRock move again. What has always happened? Bitcoin runs up, retail takes profit from Bitcoin, they move it into Ethereum, then they get some profit in Ethereum, they start moving stuff into altcoins. Are we watching BlackRock say, you know what, we're going to take the same theory. We're not going to do it in the 4-year window the way everyone was planning on it, but watch us repeat this cycle once again. There's a lot of reasons to be not just excited about Ethereum price, but if you believe still an altcoin season is coming and that there are going to be similarities to the past, these altcoin seasons have always started with an ETH over Bitcoin chart finding a bottom and then starting to move to the upside.
Well, and everything's kind of lining up too. When you look at the real future, and I think when you think about institutional capital and Ethereum, you have to look to securitize. Good example here. This is just the yields that are being paid out by securitize. There, of course, is Aptos. You can go a little bit further down and you start to see Arbitrum playing in. Then there's some AVAX right there, 185,000. Look at this right there, paid daily on Ethereum.
That's crazy.
That's why you're seeing institutional capital running into here. This is the magic juice of really what's going forward. And with that, I want to play the clip because this is what we're going to answer right after this clip is, should you sell your Bitcoin for ETH?
You know where I'm going, right? Bitcoin, major industry conference. Bitcoin ETFs are now seeing some of the biggest day of outflows since February.
Everyone's on different stages of the journey. We've certainly opened access with the launch of IBIT last year. So, BlackRock's own models have allocated to IBIT in some of the alternative models as a diversifier in a portfolio.
Is there, in your mind, timeline for when these types of investors, retail or otherwise, start to get more comfortable with things that are not Bitcoin? I'm thinking about Ethereum. Ether is one of them.
I think what's changed in the last month that's notable are the flows into our Ethereum ETF, ETH, which has seen about $1 billion year to date, with the majority of that coming just in the last 3 or 4 weeks or so. It's an evolving landscape. We're seeing there's certainly been some strong performance of late with Ethereum, and we've seen a big upgrade to Ethereum, which has brought kind of a new narrative into the space as well. So from our lens and the clients that we're speaking to, Bitcoin is still the vast majority of the conversations and the interest amongst professional investors, but we're starting to see Ethereum really pick up as well.
I think Jay hit the nail on the head in that it's just, we're so early.
All right, so my question to you, Tim, is would you reposition out of Bitcoin if you had Bitcoin and you've been riding it up to 106 right now as of today and say, hey, I'm going to take profits and I'm going to reposition now. Maybe this is the timing because maybe I have a limited amount of funds. And that's a lot of questions I think that some of our viewers are asking. How would you play that?
Yeah, I think the question would come down to who the individual is and how they set themselves up for tolerance of risk. If you are a higher risk tolerant person and you want to front run movements, meaning you see the beginning signs of the rumblings of an altcoin season, but you want to get into it before it's kind of confirmed, then yes, I would say if you have a good risk tolerance, it's time to start transitioning more heavily into Bitcoin, away from Bitcoin into altcoins. At the very least, if you still have a DCA strategy, maybe it's time to get away from a Bitcoin DCA and start picking your front runners for the altcoin season.
Yeah.
I'm not going to recommend that for everybody because there is a world, and I'm not thinking this very likely, but there's a world in which altcoins don't get the same special run they've had in the past, and Bitcoin is the true darling. And even though, what I just showed you on the ETH over Bitcoin chart is showing us a beginning move that says an altcoin season could be coming, it technically is not confirmed. And for some investors, it's better to just be still and wait for confirmation, not try to risk too much, because you start second guessing yourself. And let's pretend that ETH over Bitcoin chart starts to drop. Well, now you're beating yourself up for flipping out of Bitcoin altcoins, and now you're going back and forth, and you end up just selling every single bottom and buying all the tops of everything. That's not a recipe for success. So know yourself, know your risk tolerance. Some of you, it's time to start. If you're risky, if you're a more conservative investor and you don't want to play a risky game, hold off just a couple more weeks, look for some more confirmation. There's plenty of bull run ahead of us. You're not going to miss out on major gains. You just might not be able to front run it.
Yeah, and I think this is that's a good explanation, because you are right. And many people would look at Bitcoin, if you just think of it as a store of value and don't worry about that, just dollar cost average, because you're probably going to hold, some of you are going to hold Bitcoin forever, take loans against it, all that kind of thing, that eventually if we do see Bitcoin kind of run to its levels that many people think it's going to, then you're in the right place at the right time. But, kind of jumping on that new potential there, unless you've got a strategy that is high risk, I would agree with Tim. 21 Shares is doing something that I thought was interesting. They announced a 3-for-1 share split, and this is in reference to the ARK-B. So this is basically the IBIT of ARK, their Bitcoin ETF. And I guess the thesis behind this is to feel like it's cheaper to buy a Bitcoin from a marketing standpoint, to get people to jump into more Bitcoin inflow for the ETFs. That's the only thing I can think of, because that's kind of, sometimes share splits are just done for that purpose. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I hadn't seen that article. It's very interesting, though, because I had a BitTensor Tau price prediction video the other day, and I haven't seen a person say something like this in many years. It's actually a sign that the altcoin, that newer people are starting to jump in. And the whole thing was, because BitTensor Tau right now, I think Tau is sitting at almost $390, almost $400. And the point of the video, the point of the comment was like, why would I buy BitTensor Tau if I could buy for the same amount of money? For one BitTensor Tau, I could buy like 100 SUI. And it's like, that has nothing to do with anything. The price per coin. There are literally people, Paul, right now coming back who are sitting here looking at cheap coins thinking, well, if the coin has a lower dollar symbol, then I can make money longer term. And it's like, well, that's not how that one works. You have to look at supply and market cap and a lot of other dynamics. But hey, you know what? Maybe 21 understands. They're like, listen, we're going to have some people who don't understand numbers, and they'd much rather buy Bitcoin at 30,000 per coin than 100,000 per coin. We're not really giving them a full coin, but it'll make them feel better about their purchase.
Well, maybe I think it is most likely, the traditional retail that maybe have never dipped into crypto just yet, and they look at it as an expensive stock. Because this is something I hear all the time from people that are investing in stocks. Sometimes they'll even ask about dividends, and then they ask about stocks, but they're like, oh, well, I only want to buy stocks that are under $100. And then that makes me realize, okay, now I understand what, it's a concept of price for you, but in reality, it should be a concept of growth, for that. So I do agree with that. Speaking of one last thing before we get into Bitcoin's pricing and where it could be going, this, of course, was the issue around Sharplink Gaming. And we've talked about Sharplink Gaming and their stock called SBET. Now, this is one that we've talked about. It's up 2,000% this week, and it's all geared toward an ETH play. So just if you guys don't know, Sharplink Gaming basically started a strategy that is just like MicroStrategy, putting ETH on their treasury and then committing new funds into more. They added another $1 billion into this. When you look at SBET right now, if you go to the chart, Tim, and you see this growth, what we've had, if ETH runs and Sharplink continues to double down, kind of like a sailor, oh, well, I'm just going to buy more ETH, more ETH, more ETH. What is does it end up looking like a strategy right now in terms of the stock strategy?
Yeah, this is an interesting one to keep an eye on here. I'll say trade cautiously if you go to trade this stock. This is one that has been telling us since back in June of 2022 that the weekly chart was overextended. We have literally lived since June in 2022 in a constant, at some point we could bounce back up. At some point we could bounce back up. At some point we could bounce back up. Finally here, you guys can see, as Paul said, a big jump in the stock price, massive gap right here in the weekly charts. But we have a buy signal, but we went from almost immediately, again, a couple weeks ago, about a month ago, we're dramatically oversold. It's time for a big blow up. We shot up, and now even on the weekly chart, we are printing overbought signals. That doesn't mean we have to pull back. There are going to be people who look at this gap and say, oh, could we come back down and fill this gap? But the reason why I'm not ready to necessarily say that's for certain is, like I said, this downward bleed all throughout the bear market, and then again, no bull market for this stock whatsoever. It's almost more like this was a suppressed spring that was waiting and waiting and waiting. It got its spark and it shot up. So this is kind of an ugly one. I want to see what the next move looks like. I wouldn't touch this stock one way or the other until the oscillators reset. We had an explosive move, an explosive day. We absolutely could continue, or we could fill this gap. So the best thing for most traders is to sit on the sideline, wait for these oscillators to calm back down from this shock, and then we'll get a better idea of true price evaluation on SharpLink. But for now, if you held it, good for you. If you made some money, good for you. It's not necessarily a buy right now, but it also isn't necessarily a sell. Hodl on and watch how this chart responds. Set up some stop losses in here. If you were to come in and zoom into lower levels, set up some stop losses where if a price gets below a certain amount, you want to sell out, because then all of a sudden we're looking at lower levels, maybe back towards $7 we could buy it in at. But for now, this is a look, don't touch chart, in my opinion.
Listen, it's up 1,700% since we last reported on this stock, and mainly it was because of the news around Ethereum, how it all plays out. Let's go over to a couple other things. I want to jump over to Robinhood for a second. Bitstamp now part of Robinhood. This is a big deal that's been, I think, been brewing for quite some time. Could be good for the Robinhood stock, which has been on a tear for quite some time. Do you think Robinhood continues its upward movement right now?
That's a good question. I actually haven't looked at Robinhood charts in quite some time, so let's go take a look there. I'll say fundamentally, I think Robinhood's in a very good place, and it's funny because when I was getting heavily involved in trading, Robinhood was like the no-no of crypto, and no one wanted to touch it with a 10-foot pole. But now, I think people are warming up to it and saying, hey, this is a potential real big stock play. You can see here, highest we've been this entire cycle. Not quite all-time high. If you go back here into 2021, we were a little higher when the stock was released. But we're making some big moves here on the daily chart. I'm going to have to kind of come in here and see what we have going on. I will, on the daily chart, you absolutely are seeing some overbought signals coming in. Not guaranteeing a pullback, because until I see money flow go negative, this green cloud, you don't want to necessarily say, hey, it's all said and done. What's going to be bigger is what's it looking like on the weekly chart, where, oh man, very good look here on the weekly chart. We're building momentum up once again. There's not going to be a lot of trajectory to the upside that I can use other than using a Fibonacci extension tactic as we get back towards price discovery mode. Keep an eye on former all-time high all the way up here at $85. Where is that one? Yeah, okay, pretty much in that spot. That's what I was going to look at. The 1.272 could be the next big resistance spot. Now that you get into kind of price discovery mode, former all-time high around $84, $85 would be a very interesting next target for Hood. And then it becomes a complete fundamental game. Then we can start talking about a longer-term levels here on Hood stock. If you were to come all the way back down to the bear market bottoms, let me fix this for a second, and then I'll get the answer here. But then you're starting to look at much larger targets, things like $172 per share. Absolutely crazy. I'd have to take a look at what the market cap would look like in that situation, but that would be a target to keep an eye on potentially if the bull market keeps going, not just for crypto, but the stock market as well. I would watch Robinhood maybe up to that 1.272 on the macro, about $170 per stock.
Yeah, well, you're looking at three things that are happening all at once. Robinhood has really started to do a lot of onboarding. Their new gold or their credit card comes out. They're talking about the release of their bank app, which could open up a whole new layer of customers. And crypto has been one of the most profitable areas. You time that with tokenized securities, and yeah, you've got a hot stock here. Let's jump over to Bitcoin real quick. Tim. Bitcoin traders now predicting a little bit more of a correction. And this was talked about earlier in the week, and then we saw a rebound off of the 104 back above 106 yesterday. Where do you like Bitcoin right now? Do you think it gets a shot at 110 again?
Yeah, I think it's funny as we start to talk about Bitcoin and something we talked about earlier with Ethereum, massive outflows. I think you said historically the greatest 1 week outflows in Bitcoin ETF history. And yet Bitcoin's still at $106,000 per coin. Yeah. I'm going to show a couple things here on the charts when it portrays to Bitcoin, but I've been saying this to our community. I'm not ready to say 100% that this pullback is done, but I will give you a couple of reasons why it could be done. We had major buy levels on Bitcoin, and I think I still have, I took them off this chart, but we had buy levels between 108 and then 105, and then we actually bought the 103.5 dip on our trading group. But the reason why we located that level was because of the Lux Algo Smart Trail right here. And I had been saying for weeks on your show, I said, and I'll admit right here, I was wrong. So anyone who said, oh, Tim said we were going to pull back in April, you're right, I did, and then we didn't. I said we were going to pull back here in mid-May, we didn't. But what was I constantly saying? I constantly was saying, watch the daily smart trail. We need to revisit the daily smart trail in the same way that we did way back here on the initial breakout in September of 2024. Retouched that daily smart trail, and then we were able to take off into the big run. Well, I got what I was asking for. I got exactly what I was looking for. The question at the moment, upon looking at small, could we pull back further, is going to be there's potential sell signals coming in out here on the 3 daily and the weekly. But the problem with these is you have to maintain and keep staying up to date on things. If you had looked at this yesterday, we had red reversal, bearish momentum, and negative money flow. But guess what? This is a 3 daily chart, which means we have to wait for that candle to close every 3 days. Since yesterday, this money flow went from being negative to now it's positive once again. We were flirting on the weekly chart with a potential red reversal, bearish momentum, negative money flow. Guess what? 2 days ago, all 3 of those were here on the chart. But now, all of a sudden, if this week closes bullish, you're canceling out the weekly sell signals. So if those sell signals get canceled and all we were relying upon, the highest sell signal that was actually confirmed was this daily sell signal, red reversal, bearish momentum, negative money flow, and we hit the target, which was the daily smart trail, all of a sudden, you are sitting here saying the bottom could be in. If it's not in, again, go back to the 3 daily chart. I'm looking at ranges. Actually, I don't even like necessarily that range. I like there's a range a little higher than that. I think there's some order blocks and then 2 daily smart trail. I like the range closer towards 101, the bottom of the daily chart, the order blocks right here. I like 101, 102 as a better zone of support. But the other reason that I'm very bullish, and I think you've seen this chart before, I think this is circulating the internet right now, so I don't think I'm breaking any ice, but the M2 money supply is not something to ignore. Yeah. And while the word perfect is not the right word to describe the correlation between Bitcoin's price and M2 money supply, take a look at it. That the blue is M2, and if you delay it by roughly 90 days, which is what I'm doing right now on this chart, it front runs Bitcoin's price by roughly 90 days. 90 days ago, we had a little bit of a pullback right here. Let me zoom back in. 90 days ago, the M2 money supply had a little bit of a pullback and then started running again. Today, we had our pullback right there in that zone. It's looking very close, like the timeline to resurge is back upon us. I'm not saying follow the M2 money supply perfectly, but what I am saying is if you are a fan of it, whether we bottom out right here or we pull back a little bit further towards 100K, M2 money supply is telling us Bitcoin and crypto is about to make another run of its own. This is a chart with a lot of historical accuracy in predicting which way the markets are about to go. I would tell everyone, don't sleep on this chart. Don't sleep on this analysis. Bitcoin's going to go up eventually here in the next couple of days or weeks.
Well, and you've got to look at, I think, just liquidity in general as it does start to shift away as we see deals being made, whether it's through the tariff situation or we see the Japanese bond market kind of adjust, meaning a softer dollar, stronger digital assets. That, of course, ties into liquidity coming into the market. Hey, listen, we got to talk about a touchy point, and that is Chainlink. Because I know you're a lover of Chainlink. Chainlink had a big snafu, and many of you guys, we reported on it last week, but the big point was a lot disappeared off of an oracle. And this is one of the things that many people are questioning now around Chainlink is, does this really kind of hurt their legacy going forward, Tim? What is your feeling about this on Chainlink? Give me the rundown.
Yeah, so I'm not losing any sleep. I'm not losing any momentum here when it comes to Chainlink as a whole. I'm still very bullish on it. And this is one deal. And I thought it said 500,000 was removed. And I'm not going to act like 500,000 is nothing. I would love to have $500,000 of crypto to lose like that in a heartbeat. But let's not pretend that that's an astronomical number when it comes to these cryptocurrencies. We're talking about a market cap still of multiple billions. And while we have seen, I'm going to clean up my chart here for a second so I can show it. While we have seen Chainlink bleed back down, so has a lot of the rest of the altcoin space. Like I said, I mean, Ethereum's not bleeding back down, but everything in crypto came back down. We're pretty much sitting right on some major support right now with Chainlink that is not crazy. I mean, these are buy signals I put in weeks ago, looking for a pullback first to 16, then to 15, and then we bought some more here at 14.39. Again, was that the exact bottom? No, it wasn't. But I was predicting a pullback like this a couple of weeks ago before this news happened. If this news was really detrimental, I believe we would see Chainlink actually collapsing a whole lot further to the downside. But instead, I see this actually as a catalyst that's going to allow the FUD or the people with weak hands to get out of Chainlink, the whales and institutions to buy up more of it. One deal not being made doesn't kill everything else that Chainlink is doing. And until I hear the likes of BlackRock and others who have vouched for Chainlink say, never mind, this oracle stinks, we're not using it, I'm going to continue to be bullish. By the way, we're starting to trickle in with some major buy signals. Daily chart, 12-hour chart. These are all giving us that loads, giving us some major buy signals. We're still under a longer-term weekly buy signal here with targets to the upside of, at minimum, back up towards $24, at maximum $40 in the next couple of months. So until I start to see some major charts moving and news coming out saying that Chainlink is done, it's not going to make it, I still am a big believer in Chainlink having their hand in almost everyone's cookie jar at the moment. This is FUD, and it's doing what it's supposed to do by making people think it's time to sell a Chainlink right before a massive rally.
Well, and that's an interesting point too, because it's good, first of all, that you're very convicted about the topic, because I think projects in many cases, if you've got a lot of paper hands in some of these, it really does cause a bit of a problem in the market itself. But to your point, Chainlink has not had this happen before. Almost every chain out there has had some sort of, debacle like these. Let me flip over to Hype. Could Hype reach 50? There's the question. This token posted about an 80% rally. We've seen that high of about $40. It pulled back down to 30. When you look at Hype right now, Hyperliquid, for some of you guys have never seen this token before. First of all, do you like a trade on Hype right now? Would you go into it at its current price?
Yeah, I have never traded Hype, so I'm going to have to look up some stuff here quickly. But let's take a look at the charts. I mean, this is ultimately, I'm going to try to do some flyby 2-minute technical analysis here. I want to start with just taking a look at the macro perspective. We haven't broke new all-time highs from the creation back in December 24, but we've made some big moves here. It's had a phenomenal run since the bottom back in April. That's a very good sign. A lot of momentum, lots of conviction, I would say. Yeah, I'm not going to learn a lot from the weekly chart necessarily, other than it's a little overextended. Let's go down the daily chart here. This will give me a little bit more to work with. Here you go. You had a daily sell signal, red reversal, bearish momentum, negative money flow. The RSI was dramatically overextended. The MACD needed to cross bearish. What's the target, though? The target's the daily smart trail. We didn't quite touch it, but I would say that's close enough for government work. The fact that we're getting a nice little bounce here again, and that money flow is starting to come back in. This isn't an official buy signal because we never got a green reversal, but we never needed one because the oscillators really didn't drop down that far. At the very least, what I see happening here is a move back up towards new highs, $42 to $50, and then you're going to be on watch for bearish divergence. This is where your RSI your price action puts in a higher high, but the RSI maybe puts in a lower high. You get some bearish divergence there. That's an ugly line, so let me redraw that. Bearish divergence right here with a higher price action, and then you have your actual stronger correction. But I'm not a pun guy, but Hype's got a lot of hype right now. You don't bet against the trend, and I'm not seeing there be any evidence to say that the trend is coming to an end yet. The trend's very bullish. I would keep looking for higher upside. $42 to $50 would be a target to watch out for.
All right, so keep an eye on that one, guys. Some people are looking at being the soul of this run. If that were to happen,
interesting,
we could see up to, well, in this particular analysis, he calculated it, the soul's market cap, which would take it out around 7x in terms of gains from where it is. So I don't know. It's one to, because it is and has come out of, I won't say out of nowhere, but it did accelerate very similar to Sol in its early stage. So it'll be fun to watch. Avalanche is one that we've stuck around with for a very long time. It has been another slow mover, similar to ETH, you know, hovering around that $20 to $25 range. But something has changed, and that is these L1s. Look at that absolute blast off in terms of L1s coming in, all indexed. Now monthly transaction counts starting to explode. This means revenue. What does this look like for Avalanche, the token, where it's trading right now? Do we have a window here, Tim, to where we could see an explosion coming?
It's possible. I think people are going to get sick of me talking about real world asset plays. We haven't had the catalyst come in. We just talked about Chainlink. I don't know if this is on the menu, but Ondo, people are complaining about Ondo right now. So many fundamental reasons to explode. These are all three of these, Chainlink, AVAX, Ondo, all real world asset plays. But it's another reason to be confident right now is with Chainlink falling, AVAX chart, I'll show you, is not necessarily that impressive. It's because it's not yet time for the real world assets to go crazy explosive. Some people look at that as a bad thing. I see it as a very good thing. Once again, like a lot of other things I've showed you, there was a sell signal on the daily chart. We came back down. Look where we bounced off the daily smart trail, just like a lot of other things. But guess what? Just like some other coins as well, that Luxalgo oscillator, green reversal, bullish momentum, positive money flow coming in here on AVAX. I would give it a short-term target of at least $26 back up to these highs, maybe next couple of weeks up to 31. This is the one, though, that I'm watching. If the weekly chart, and again, we're under bullish signals here. We have no official sell signal, even though there's some negative money flow right there. The flow is bullish on the weekly chart. That one's giving us targets back up to $40. And if we start to expand and go explosive like we could under a massive bull run, you know, you're starting off with just talking about getting back up. I say back up. Yeah, okay. We were back up here in 21. Back up towards $100. $90 in this cloud. I still believe AVAX, from a market cap perspective, could end up sitting somewhere between $100 to $200. Let's start off by just getting back up above 30. Then let's worry about getting above 50. But again, $100 to $200 still in the works for AVAX. And we're getting the buy signals to kind of get some of those results. It's just about, hey, we need the actual catalyst to launch. What is that catalyst going to be? In my personal opinion, it's going to be regulatory clarity. As soon as it's clear how we can utilize altcoins, watch the institutions who want to tokenize their assets go crazy in the real world asset space. Think the AVAX, think Ondo, think Chainlink. We're very far away from a bear market for those. We got a lot of room coming still. Hold on, buy dips. If anything, these might still be the real world asset plays might be the best opportunities still to buy low and have massive returns.
Yeah. Well, and you look at the ecosystem around Avalanche, much of that could come in from the meme cycle. You look at KET, the kind of growth it's had since January. I mean, it's up 9,000%. So there's a lot of potentials where people could recoil out of some of these meme projects back into the core token, meaning Avalanche. But to support it, just from a trading standpoint, obviously, the more strategic model is to play into the RWAs and how this starts to set up on the institutional side of things. So this is another token we'll keep a very close eye on. Of course, Tim and I will come back to you guys. We'll do some more breakdowns of more tokens in our next show. Tim, thanks a lot for coming in today. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me again. I'll see you again soon.
All right, take care. If you guys are not in the Diamond Circle, jump in right now. It's a free place where you get additional content from us. Also, you can catch me out there on Twitter, which is just @PaulBaron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.